Hi everybody, welcome to our Ask a Biller webinar focusing on what out-of-network therapists should know about billing. Before we get started, I wanted to share a few notes about this webinar. You will be receiving the recording and the slides from today's webinar in our follow-up email going out tomorrow morning. Also, if you're having any technical difficulties throughout our webinar, we suggest you refresh the GoToWebinar page or re-enter the webinar. Quick introduction of myself. My name is Nick Allen. I'm the Marketing Events Manager at SimplePractice. Won't go too much into detail as I'm not going to be speaking on this webinar, but we'll pass it over to Barbara to introduce yourself. Barbara, can you talk a bit about yourself and your work?
Well, hi, Nick. Thanks so much for inviting me to speak again. I love doing these SimplePractice webinars. I'm just so you know you guys know who I am. I'm a private practice consultant, which is someone who helps you guys with your private practices to help them grow and thrive. And I'm the author of Navigating the Insurance Maze, the Therapist's Complete Guide to Working with Insurance and Whether You Should, which is now in its 8th edition. And I am a ground pounder like you. I recently celebrated my 30 years in private practice, so I learned the hard way. I also provide individual consultations and group trainings for therapists nationwide on working with all kinds of issues, insurance, documentation, and the whole business side of your practice that you probably don't love. And definitely contact me with your questions at my website, theinsurancemaze.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Barbara, and we've loved working with you over the last 2 years. Just a little note here, we do have our Ask a Biller webinar series. If you want to go back and watch any of our webinars that we've done with Barbara, that's simplepractice.com/askabiller-series. Great. Without further ado, we'll jump right into those questions. The first one is, what exactly is an out-of-network therapist?
Yeah, so some people feel like this is a dumb question. Of course, as we know, there's no dumb questions. An out-of-network therapist or OON network therapist is basically anyone who hasn't signed a contract with an insurance plan to be a network therapist. So what do you have to do to become an out-of-network therapist? Pretty much nothing. You just breathe. In most cases, you are automatically an out-of-network therapist if you just haven't signed a contract with that particular plan. So I'm going to be out of network with Blue Cross if I never signed a contract with them. I'm out of network with Aetna if I've never signed a contract with them to be one of their network providers. So you might be out of network with some panels and in network with others.
Great. For clients with health insurance, is there any type of coverage that works for out-of-network therapists?
Yeah, definitely. This is a frequent question. We feel like if people have health insurance, but you're out of network, like, is there a way that their health insurance can pay for the services that they're getting or that they can get reimbursed? So let me kind of quickly outline that. There are different types of insurance and whatnot. I don't want to go through all the little alphabet soup, but the basic things you need to know that will answer that question is one type of insurance is called an HMO. We hear this one a lot. Health, which stands for Health Maintenance Organization. And another kind is a EPO, which is an exclusive provider organization. And these two types, they only cover network providers. So if your client has one of these two types of insurance or insurance account, basically they're not going to be able to get coverage to see you if you're an out-of-network provider. I hope that makes sense. So if they have an Aetna HMO, you would need to be an Aetna provider for them to get any reimbursement to see you or for you to be covered. And the same thing with an EPO, which is less common. Sometimes we think of HMO like Kaiser or something where they have to be actually an employer. The provider is actually an employee of the HMO, but it isn't like that. You can be out in the community. Many people with HMOs can see network providers out in the community. Now, the one you can focus on if you're an out-of-network provider is if your client has a PPO plan or a less common POS plan. So PPO means Preferred Provider Organization, or a POS is a point of service plan. Then these clients are going to have coverage for network providers and out-of-network providers. There's just going to be incentives for them to see network providers, but they would still get coverage for out-of-network providers. So you're going to see a lot more of these clients. I think that there's a lot of our clients do have PPO plans, and they don't really know sometimes that they can get reimbursed for an out-of-network person. So typically the client's going to pay more when they go out-of-network, and there's other differences, but in general, we want to educate them. And we want to ask them questions. Sometimes we don't ask clients, but I think it's our job to educate clients who do see us privately to say, hey, might you have medical insurance and might you be able to get some reimbursement, which would be great if we could educate them, and maybe that allows them to continue to see us more. Maybe they get reimbursement, they're able to see us more frequently or for a longer period of time.
Great. How does insurance billing usually work for out-of-network providers?
Well, let's talk about the straightforward way it usually works. Usually the client is going to pay you in full, ideally at the time of the session. Anyone who's ever heard me speak before knows that I'm not a supporter of billing clients at the end of the month and then hoping that they will pay you. There's so many things that can go wrong with this. Client gets mad at you, client isn't happy that you didn't save their marriage, the client is angry at you for charging them for a missed session, so they don't pay you for a month's worth of sessions. Also, clients' financial situations can change and they aren't able to pay you for weeks of sessions. So there's just a lot of issues with billing. So I just am really all about getting paid for each session at the time of the session, however you want to set that up, whether that's credit cards or invoicing them or having them pay in advance or whatever. So then they've paid you at full at the time of the session. And if they have out-of-network coverage, okay, we said that not everyone does have out-of-network coverage, you would give them a statement or a superbill. We're going to call it probably a superbill because that's basically, a superbill is just a jazzed up statement which says a few extra items on it like diagnosis and CPT codes and some codes that insurance needs. And this is going to reflect that the client did pay. Now remember, never give a superbill until the client has paid you. And then the client turns around and submits that superbill to the health plan for reimbursement. And they often must attach it to a form from their employer or from the health plan that has a little more information than you're going to have on your superbill about the client. And then hopefully the client is partially reimbursed. Most of the time, the client is not going to get fully reimbursed. They're not going to get 100% of what they paid you. But many clients will have 50% or 60% or 70% reimbursement, so it can be very helpful. It depends on their coverage. Now, the good thing with this is there's no financial risk for you, right? You don't have any billing hassles. The downside about this is that you might lose clients who are unable to pay in full upfront, and clients must figure out where and how to submit those bills. So this could lead to treatment dropout if it becomes a hardship basically for them to pay you each time in full at session.
I've heard of fellow clinicians providing courtesy billing. Can you explain what that means and how it works?
Yeah, there's definitely, we use this term in different ways, so I want to be really sure that we're using it the same way. So I have two ways of talking about courtesy billing. I have option one, which I call courtesy billing light. And that's basically that the clients pay you in full at the session, but you take care of submitting the super bill for them. You do the kind of administrative piece where you submit it to the plan, and then the plan reimburses the client. So we all know that we have those anxious, those depressed clients who sometimes you give a super bill and they never send it in. It ends up on their dining room table with a pile of other stuff, and it seems like too much hassle. They don't know where to send it, like we said. So this is a way that you can assist them. You could submit the Superbill for them. The good news is there's no financial risk. You've already been paid for the session, which is a great, and this may attract some new clients. You could advertise on your website, hey, I will submit the billing for you. I will take care of this for you. That's kind of a nice sell. And obviously it helps your clients get reimbursed, and they may really like that. Obviously there's some hassle. You're gonna have to figure out, or with the clients, figure out where to bill. You're gonna have to take care of sending that bill. But you know, once you set it up for each client, it's probably pretty minimal. And I talk to a lot of therapists who do this, and they, but you will have to figure out a little bit about a very basic information for a client's insurance. Now, option 2 is what I would call full courtesy billing. And I'm going to tell you why I don't really recommend this, but I know therapists who do this, and they say they have good success with it too. This is where the client only pays their out-of-network coinsurance. The therapist does not collect the full amount from the client at the session, and you bill insurance for the rest. And the plan reimburses you. This is called accepting assignment. You accept the payment from the insurance plan. Now, obviously the pro is that this is the maximum help you can give a client. This may make your sessions more affordable to clients who can't afford to pay up front. But obviously the downside is this is the most work for you. And the plan may pay the client instead of you, and then you're chasing the client for money, which is why I don't recommend it. And it's not always easy to figure out how much to collect from the client, how much their co-insurance or their cost share is for those out-of-network sessions. So many clinics do this, and I'm not saying not, that they're wrong or bad. It's just, when I say not recommended, it's certainly a higher risk that that you might not get paid, that the client might get paid. And then I've heard cases where the therapist was kind of chasing a client who had left therapy and was still trying to get paid, or the client was just not responding to the therapist's request for payment.
Great. How often should I give clients Superbills, and what should be on my Superbills?
Oh, excellent questions. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about Superbills. I put together some slides on that. All right, so here's like a very truncated Superbill. I just want to give you a moment to kind of look at it. You're going to want, obviously, your name and your contact information, your address. And we'll talk a little bit about address, the date, client's name, client's date of birth, and don't forget that diagnosis code. Just write the code or codes. That should be on a Superbill. And then you're going to see for each therapy date, you should have a full line that tells all the details about that. Now, you're going to have the one that we're looking at here. You're going to see there's a date here, 4/24. And then you're going to see a place of service code. You might not have one of these on your Superbill, and I advise you to kind of put a column for this, because this is becoming more important in this era of telehealth. And it depends where the client is. If it's in person, there's going to be a place of service code 11. If the person is, if it's a telehealth session, if they're at their home, there's a new place of service code 10. If they're anywhere else, it would be 02. So this person was, it's a telehealth session and they were somewhere other than at their home. And this place of service code may vary depending on your insurance, the insurance plan. So like Medicare still wants us to use 11 at the time of this taping. And so this one you want to check with the insurance plan and see which place of service code they want you to use. But most of them right now for telehealth are using 10 for in-person, when the client's at their home, telehealth, when a client's at their home, and 02 when they're anywhere else. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make about a Superbill is you want probably a column here for place of service code. And then you're going to put your CPT code, which is that 5-digit code that tells the insurance plan what kind of service you provided. And then modifier. This again is another column many of us don't have on our Superbills, but you're going to want that, I would say. And that basically says for telehealth sessions, I would highly recommend that you put a modifier. Even if it's not necessary, it's better to have one and not have it not be necessary than to have a Superbill rejected because it doesn't have a modifier. And modifiers are usually only needed for telehealth sessions, and they usually need a 95. There's only a few plans I know of that they may accept a GT. Most plans will accept a GT, which is the older modifier. Only a couple plans insist on a GT and won't accept 95. Like Regents is one that I know is like that. And also you might want to put in your service description, definitely say if it was video or phone or whatever. So if you want to know about telehealth billing, I have a whole separate webinar on that topic that I just recorded last month. Check out my website at theinsurancemaze.com and check out my store page, and you can find out all about my telehealth billing webinar. All right. And down here on the left, you're going to see the person's name, the therapist's name, their license number, their employer ID number, which we'll talk a tiny bit about in a minute, and their NPI number. So stick everything on there. And you'll also see that this reflects that this person was charged $120 and they paid $120. So it's telling the insurance plan this person has paid. Reimburse them because they did pay. All right, a few other thoughts about Superbill, since this is a big area of questions. How frequently should you give somebody a Superbill? You know, sometimes I get calls from clients and they're like, hey, can you give me a Superbill for the entire last year? That's never good because they're expecting a huge amount of money and there could be something going wrong that they don't get reimbursed the way they anticipated. So I encourage you at least monthly, give your clients a Superbill, but the more frequent the better, so you can find out if there's a problem with their reimbursement. But really, obviously, it's up to them. Make sure you include that license number. I do suggest that you get a free employer ID number, an EIN, so you don't have to put your social security number on Superbills. So they do want a tax ID number on your Superbill. And there's two types of tax ID numbers. There's either the social security number or the employer ID number. And even if you're the only employee that you have, anyone can get an employer ID number if you have a private practice. So I would encourage you to do that. And when you're applying, they're going to ask how many employees you have, and you have one employee, you. So that's fine. And the link to get it, I have created a kind of what I call a landing page for this webinar, and I'm going to put all kinds of links and resources there. And it's theinsurancemaze.com/spoon. And SPOON stands for Simple Practice Out of Network. But I realized that actually comes out to spoon. So write down right now, because I'm going to talk about it many times during this webinar, theinsurancemaze.com/spoon. And you'll get the link there if you want to get your EIN. Okay, you're all going to ask me for telehealth though, what address do I put down for my office address on a Superbill? If you still have your office, use your office address, even if you're sitting at home in your pajamas when you did the telehealth, that's fine. If you've given up your office and you've got a PO box, I don't recommend that you put your PO box on the Superbill. That may get rejected. I've heard that happening. So, and it may be unwise to put your home address on a Superbill floating around out there for your clients to see. You know, I don't particularly want my clients to have my home address for many reasons. Even if I trust my clients, maybe their angry spouse that thinks that I'm leading to the divorce may, you know, find my home. I don't really want that. So I encourage you to have some kind of office address you can use, whether that's a colleague's office address, whether you get a virtual office address. I think I have, yeah. So you might want to consider a virtual office address such as regis.com or ipostal1.com, which provides a virtual address you can use. It's actually a physical address. List each date of service on a separate line. And if you're a group, you're going to want to give your rendering provider's name and their NPI plus the group's name and the group tax ID and the group NPI. So make it clear who provided the service. Be very careful. I think in an audit, you have to be careful that you don't make it look like someone else provided the service. What if a client just wants a receipt not to submit to insurance? Just take off all the, you can use the same Superbill, just take off or remove anything that has diagnosis on it. Particularly, you don't really need CPT codes. You don't really need all those extra codes. You could just write, you know, psychotherapy or health care services. Sometimes they just want something to submit for taxes. So try to take off any extra information that's not necessary. Ask them why they need it. So some of the freebies that I am giving out for today, since you guys are putting aside this time to attend, and I always like to give out freebies. I'm giving out two. One is a sample Superbill. So you can use this. It's in a Word document format and you can download it. It's on that landing page I talked about. And the other is an out-of-network checking coverage handout. You can give this handout to your clients who are out of network for them to check their coverage, or you can use it to check their coverage if you want to. It's really helpful, like what questions should they be asking, and it's a nice thing to be able to give out to your clients or put it on your website. Or if you want to just join my mailing list to find out about other cool webinars or resources, all of this is happening at that one page that I put aside for this. Again, write it down, theinsurancemaze.com/spoon. All these good downloads are going to be available there for free for you guys. One more minute, I'm going to leave this up, theinsurancemaze.com/spoon. Get your sample Superbill, which you can alter any way that works for you. It even has all the CPT procedure codes on it, so you don't have to be like, what? I can't remember what the codes are. It's going to be helpful. All right.
Great. Jumping into that next question. I had an insurance company ask me to send them a W-9 for before when they would reimburse an out-of-network client. Is this common, and will this make me a member of the network?
Yeah, that's another common question. So basically, I don't think I have the answer on here. Oh yeah, I do. Yes, it's very common that an insurance plan will ask you for a W-9 before they're going to reimburse an out-of-network client. Basically, it means they don't have you in their computer. They need you, before they stick you in their computer, they need this form to basically have, say, this therapist is attesting that, you know, that is indeed, that a code on my Superbill is indeed mine. I authorize its use. I'm signing and saying that you can put it in your computer. Now, we wonder why they need it, because they're not paying us directly often, where they're just paying the clients. But for whatever reason, yes, they need it. And if you've never billed for that plan before, they often will ask for it. And no, it doesn't make you a network member. You have to go through so much more to become a network therapist. You will have to sign a very long contract, and so don't fear that filling out a W-9 makes you a network therapist. Again, if you want to know where to get the W-9 form, I'm putting the link on our landing page at theinsurancemaze.com/spoon. So you can just click on the link and you can get that W-9 if somebody ever asked for it or if a health plan ever asked for it.
Great. Can you be audited or have your records requested if you are out of network and your clients get reimbursed? And also, can your treatment be reviewed?
I'm sorry to say, this is a big surprise to a lot of out-of-network therapists who never got involved with insurance because they wanted to avoid both of these things, but the answer is yes. You can be audited, you can have your records requested, your treatment can be reviewed, and I've seen this many, many times, even if you're an out-of-network therapist. Why is this? Because as soon as your client submits a Superbill to an insurance plan, they're asking this insurance plan to pay for something. And that opens the door for the insurance plan to want to say, well, if we're paying, we want to make sure that the treatment being provided is the right type and the right frequency. And we want to know that the documentation that's being done is the type that we want to be seeing. So I've seen situations where, shockingly, and I think this is a later question, out-of-network client submits bills to the insurance plan and they ask for documentation from the therapist, who is an out-of-network therapist, and the notes are found to be subpar. They don't meet the insurance plan's requirements, and then the client is not reimbursed, which is shocking on so many levels because the therapist never agreed to a certain documentation criteria, and now the client is being probably mad at the therapist for not keeping their documentation in a certain standard that was never agreed on by the therapist, and it can really put you in a clinical problems with your client who is not getting reimbursed because of the status of your documentation, which is why I so lean on all therapists, whether you work with insurance or not, to have really good documentation. And I have a whole webinar on that, on what should be in your progress notes that I hope everyone will take.
Great. Are there documentation requirements since we're not contracted, and can they ask for treatment plans also?
Yeah, so I have 2 webinars on this whole thing, so I don't want to spend, and we can't do that in 10 minutes. But basically, yes, as I just said, there are documentation requirements since you're not contracted, and they can ask for treatment plans, sure. So, and they can refuse to pay, as I said, if your documentation isn't good. And I'll just, in a couple words here, decided I'll just try to tell you kind of the basic broad strokes of what should be in your notes. Most plans are going to want your therapy start and stop times. This is a major issue right now. And this is not the scheduled start and stop times of your session. It needs to be when the therapy portion of your session started and stopped each time. So if the client's 5 minutes late, you're going to want to document 1:05 that the therapy started. And if they stopped, and it can include any time spent scheduling the next session, or documenting the session, or making phone calls about the session, or waiting for the client. So you need to be documenting the start and stop times of the actual therapy portion of the session, and they look for that very carefully when they look at your documentation. You're going to have things like the date of the session, the type of the session, couples, individual, video, phone, in person, all that stuff. Client's name, of course. The client location for telehealth has become a new one, so I wanted to throw that in there. You should always have the client's physical location in case and that means like street address if they're not at home, so that you could send help in a emergency. So you can just write client at home if you know that they're at home, but if they're anywhere else, you're supposed to document their actual physical address. Obviously, topics and symptoms discussed, your interventions, which should rise to the level above supported, listen. It needs to be kind of, master's level interventions. Client progress, date of the next session that you scheduled, and don't forget to sign it, and your credentials. So there's, that's kind of the basics. Some other plans are going to want more, but I would say this is pretty much what you should be sure that you're documenting in each note. And if you aren't too confident about your notes, take my webinar, which is what you didn't get in graduate school about writing notes. And I have 8 sample notes in there, tell you all about notes. And again, the link to that is on our landing page at theinsurancemes.com/spoon.
Alrighty. Are we required to provide out-of-network options to clients?
So I saw this question, and I think what this person's asking is, do I have to give people super bills? I think that's what they mean. Is that what you think?
That's the way I took it.
Okay, good. I talked to an attorney about this several months ago because I had a coaching client asking about this, and he said, no, he thinks that there's no legal requirement that we have to provide super bills, but he would definitely recommend that that we have that. Not that he would recommend, he would strongly recommend, if we're going to do that, that we definitely should have that in writing upfront to our clients, that when they sign a treatment agreement or informed consent, that they are alerted that that is not a possibility, that you will not be providing super bills, and so they could decide whether they want to go to somebody who does do that, or it's no surprise down the line, whatever. So no, you're not required to do that. And I know several therapists I know say, I don't want to have to provide a super bill because that opens me up for a clinical review. I don't want to do that, and I don't want my notes to be looked at. But I guess I feel the chances of a review are very small for out-of-network providers. It exists, but it is small. And, I would be sorry if we took that tack because we're afraid of that small possibility, and a lot of our clients then did not get reimbursement, which could help them stay in therapy. So I hope that we try to keep that option open. And remember that a client, if the insurance plan does come and want to see your notes or does want to do a clinical review, the client always has the option to say, no, I don't want that to happen, and never mind, so I won't seek reimbursement from my insurance plan for those dates. So there's ways also to back up if the client is okay with that.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about sliding fees?
Probably not, because when I talk about sliding fees, I get into so much. It's such a big topic, so I'm not sure I can talk a little about it, but I can talk a lot about it. I'll see. So I tried to pick out some of the salient areas and put them on the slide. So let's see what I can say about them. When you're discussing fees with a new client, here's what I recommend you say. That you tell them that your fee, and you then bite your tongue. This is what someone taught me to do, and I liked it. She said, don't say my fee is $150, but if you can't afford that, I can slide down to $80. We tend to do that. We tend to feel uncomfortable sometimes with our fee, or we tend to jump the gun instead of just holding and saying my fee is $150 and then biting my tongue and seeing how the client reacts to that. They may be fine. They may be like, okay, that's fine. And we will have just given away the farm if we said, but I could slide to 80. Why would a person take 150? So wait and see how the person reacts to that. If they say, I'm sorry, I can't afford that, then I would recommend you come back with the sentence, what do you think you can afford? Not, well, I can slide to 80 or 60 or 40. Sometimes people will come back with, well, I could do 140. You think to yourself, wow, that doesn't seem much different. but you were ready to give it away for 80. So some of this, I guess I'm saying, is we need to look at our issues with fees and sliding fees and how we sometimes tell people about the bottom of our fee schedule, and that I wouldn't recommend. Now, you should have a clear sliding scale policy, but people have different notions about what's legal and what's not legal, and I did a lot of consultation with attorneys about this. And what they told me is you can't discriminate. The basics, you can't, the only bad thing in sliding scale policies are you can't discriminate against a legally protected class, like race or gender orientation or gender. But it's okay to base your sliding scale based simply on a client's stated ability to pay or on a non-protected class, he told me. Like, if you want to say, I have sliding scale openings for people who are unemployed or for students, that's fine. They are not protected by law. You're able to, interestingly enough, slide based on those things, and that's not seemed to be discriminatory. One attorney told me that he, in fact, doesn't think it's a good idea to try to verify a client's financial need for a reduced fee. He thinks, people are going to falsify documents. It could be a problematic dual relationship if they're lying to you, or if you're now in this situation where you are like kind of checking out looking at their tax returns. That's a lot of personal information that you're seeing. So it kind of just, there's a lot of problems that he sees with it, and he does not recommend it. My tip and his tip, we both agreed on this, was that when you do a sliding scale fee, name some kind of an endpoint for reevaluating when that reduced fee might end. So just kind of, let's tell them we'll reevaluate this in, let's say, 3 months, or and we'll see if you still need this reduced fee. That way it doesn't lock you in.
Great. How do I reflect the sliding scale fee on the Superbill?
So your Superbill should reflect how much the client paid, not just your normal fee. This is a big problem I'm seeing out there, and that could be fraud, basically. So if you put your normal fee, let's say it's $200, let's just for easy sake, and the client only paid you $100, you're basically fraudulently telling the insurance plan a different number than what the client actually paid, and that could be fraud. You're kind of inflating what the client paid, and in fact the client may be reimbursed too much money, even more than they paid. So you really need to be putting down only what the client paid. Now, if you are courtesy billing, you must collect the full session charge that you put on that Superbill. Again, you've represented to the insurance plan that this was your charge. So you, unlike a network provider, you have to balance bill the client for any portion the plan doesn't pay. Now, I know that's a little confusing for those of you who don't courtesy bill, but basically the bottom line is when you report an amount to the insurance plan, you have to be, you either have already collected that amount or you're going to collect that full amount you've reported to them, or else that could be fraud. And just to put this clear, it should be no problem to have 2 clients, each submitting a Superbill to a plan, sorry, I'm missing a word there, who have different rates for the same service. So if I'm submitting, I have 2 clients who are Aetna clients, one submitting for the full fee, one has a reduced fee, that should not be an issue. And again, I have a whole webinar on this called Are You Committing Insurance Fraud? And the link for that is on our landing page at theinsurancemaze.com/SPOON.
Great. For private pay clients, can I charge one fee for those who will be seeing insurance reimbursement, and another for clients who don't have any coverage or who pay in cash?
Oh, sorry about that. That's supposed to be for those who will be seeking insurance reimbursement. Yeah. So the answer basically is that you cannot inflate your fee for insurance clients. That could be fraud. So you have to have a full fee that you charge for anyone who walks in your door. And can you base fees on whether they have insurance coverage or not? Okay, so those are two separate things. One is inflating your fees for insurance coverage, but can I give people discounts if they don't have insurance coverage? I asked the attorney about this and he said, well, it's likely not illegal, but it's probably impractical and presumptive, which is what I thought too, because if I say, hey, I'm not going to discount you because you're getting, basically, I'm going to discount people who don't have insurance coverage. That's assuming that insurance is going to pay for their insurance for their sessions. And very often people with insurance who seek insurance reimbursement don't get any. They either have a big deductible they have to use up first, or it doesn't cover it for some reason, or whatever. So you're kind of presumptive in that you're guessing that because they have insurance that they're going to be reimbursed. And I don't find that a good way of operating. So I wouldn't recommend it.
Can we collect our full fee for out-of-network sessions, even above what the in-network allowed rate is?
Yeah, a lot of people think basically a plan, let me just jump to it. Plans cannot limit your ability to set or slide fees for your private clients. That's, I think, just jump to the answer there. Basically, no matter what health plans you are contracted with and what discounted rates you have agreed to for them, that should not limit your ability to set or slide fees for your private clients.
I'm an in-network with several insurance plans. If an insurance client is coming just for a relationship issue and I don't find a diagnosis more than a Z code, can I see them out of network?
Yeah, I mean, basically for insurance to cover it, sounds like this person knows, you generally need a diagnosis, and that's usually more than a DSM-5 Z code. That's the old V codes of just like marital problems or parent-child problems or things like that. So usually you need something more than that. Some insurance plans, I am hearing do cover Z codes, but that would be something you'd want to check. Now, adjustment disorder is usually fine. Okay, so that's the basis. Now this person's saying, okay, they're coming in, it's a relationship issue, I'm not finding anything more than a Z code. Can I just see them out of network? So you definitely can work with this client, and you need to tell them that you can't bill them insurance though. So you can't, when you say see them out of network, you just have to tell them, yes, I can see you in my private practice, but I can't give you any kind of Superbill or claim or anything, because inventing a diagnosis would be insurance fraud, of course. So you will be seeing them in your private practice, basically, no insurance billing, and they will not actually be out of network clients. I mean, I guess if they're using this phrase in a different way, but yes, you can see them. You just have to tell them you cannot bill their insurance in any way or give them a super bill to turn into their insurance.
An insurance client came to me. I told him I had no insurance slots left, but could see him if he paid out of pocket. He was willing to do it. Is this okay?
Oh, I hear this question all the time, and I'm sorry to say no. So what leads us to do this? Basically, obviously, many of us are unsatisfied, unhappy. Perhaps the main problem with working with insurance, with the fees we're being paid by insurance plans for those of us who do work directly with insurance. And so what happens often is that our therapy slots fill up with discounted rates, insurance clients, and we're finding we're not making as much money as we need to or whatever. So we start trying to look for ways to either convert people who call us into private pay clients and not use their insurance. And And that's what this person is doing, basically by saying, I'm going to put a maximum on your number of insurance slots, and I'll try to convert this person into a private pay client. This would be a contract violation. You really are not able to do this. With your contract with the health plan, you have said that you will give any member who comes to you, no matter how they came to you, if they are if you are an Anthem Blue Cross provider and an Anthem Blue Cross person comes to you, that you will give them the benefits of you being a network provider. You will take care of the claims. They will only have to pay the co-payment to you, all that good stuff. So it would be a contract violation to turn them into a private pay person. Now, I stressed in here that he was willing to do it. You have to remember too that even if a client is willing to do this, that can change. They can get dissatisfied with you. They may be just chatting on the phone with insurance and kind of mention the arrangement that you have, not knowing that it's really not, it's against your contract, and you might get a reach out from the insurance plan to slap your hand. Or a strongly worded letter. So you can get it, or they could file a complaint against you with the insurance plan or a licensing board or ethics committee. So I would definitely not recommend that. Now, the only exception to this is if a client comes to you and without any prompting, they say, I know I have insurance coverage, but I don't want to use it. You didn't say anything. They said to you, I don't want to use it due to confidentiality or whatever. They say they want to waive their coverage and you did not prompt them. Then I would have them sign a self-pay agreement, which is available in my practice forms packet. Again, a link to that is on my on the landing page at theinsurancemaze.com/spoon. So basically, you want to draw up a self-pay agreement and say, I understand I have insurance coverage and I'm choosing not to use it. So this is what the client would be writing, or it would be in your self-pay agreement. I'm choosing not to use it, and I understand that these are the terms of that agreement. I won't ask you later to bill my insurance, and I waive this and I waive that. So
The insurance plans I'm contracted with would pay too little for couples sessions. Can I tell all new couples that I won't bill insurance for couples therapy?
Probably my other most constant question. This is a big topic. I'm gonna do very bad addressing it in such a short time, but basically you have to be very careful with this one. So many things to say here. Basically, if you sign a contract with an insurance plan, and one of the things that you are offering in that, usually we have agreed to provide services of 90847, which is the couples therapy code. So basically, you have usually contracted with your insurance plan to provide couples therapy. There are ways around this, kind of, but for the most part, I would say it could be a contract violation to just tell all your new couples, I'm not going to bill insurance for couples therapy. A lot of therapists are looking at this. I prefer to meet with the clients, see if there's any issues that are, I feel like there's two criteria that have to be met. Number one, when you meet with a couple, it's the same as meeting with an individual. You have to see whether there's any medical necessity for treatment. Is there anything here above that Z code as we talked about? Is there some anxiety? Is there some depression? Is there some distress, impairment? If so, okay, that maybe can be billed to insurance. And then the next thing with couples, you have to say, is what I'm going to be doing treating that in any way? So as one of the people in the room who might have some level of distress and a diagnosis, can I make an argument that what I'm doing is going to help? And I have to say, in my case, I feel like usually one of the people in the couple has an adjustment disorder, at least, if not more, and that I certainly don't have any problem making an argument that the couples therapy is going to assist with the anxiety or depression or adjustment disorder in the room. So to me, I have a more wanting to be able to offer that to couples, even though I don't like the pay. And but there are some situations where it isn't appropriate to bill insurance for couples. So yeah, again, I have a whole couples therapy webinar on that and billing and when it's appropriate and when it isn't, which I have a link on our landing page also. All right, we only have a few more question time. Let's see.
Great. Do you have any thoughts on setting fees?
Yeah, let's put a few things here. I think this is like really personal. People are always yelling at me because I don't charge enough. They say it's like reflective of my poor self-esteem or that that it makes it look bad when I charge little and other people charge more. I mean, people have a very interesting reaction to fee setting. I tell people really it's going to depend on a lot of things, how comfortable you are. You should always be able to name your fee and not feel so wildly uncomfortable. But it also depends on your income needs. It depends on your region. It depends on your population that you work with. I'm going to probably encourage someone to set a little higher fee if they're a single mother who has no other job and this is their primary income and they need, you know, to have to pay their rent, they need to be having a certain income than somebody who might not have the same level of income need. So that's a personal thing. Your region, of course, if you work in Beverly Hills versus Bakersfield or you know, different areas of the country, what you can get is the population you work with, how affordable, how much are they able to afford. So I do recommend charging more for an intake session, 90791. People can usually afford a little bit extra, and most insurance plans do pay extra for an intake, and a 90847 for couples. Personally, I find them more exhausting and want to be paid a little bit more, and there's more case management. All insurance plans do not pay more, as you would hope for the 90847, but and then you might want to search online listings of therapists in your area so that you're getting a comparable what's going rate in your area. Go for like Psychology Today. You may want to price yourself around the same, or you may want to price yourself a little bit less so that, because I know I get some people contacting me because I am a little less than other people in my area. I also wanted to point out that SimplePractice has an income calculator to determine session rates. And the link is going to be on that landing page. You just enter your email at theinsurancemaze.spoon.com/, and I'll take you to the link for the SimplePractice income calculator, which helps you determine session rates to cover your expenses. What do you think, Nick? Do you have time for more, or do we need to wrap it up?
We could do one more if you've got time for that, Barbara.
Oh,
Great.
It's kind of a big one, but we could do it.
Oh. Get through it quickly. What are the most common reasons an out-of-network claim might not be paid in full or might be rejected?
Yeah, okay. So we got a bunch of different. So it went to the deductible. This is a very common one. People sometimes they have a separate deductible for in-network and out-of-network. So even though your client might say, oh, my deductible has been used up, they might be talking about their in-network deductible. So they may have a separate bucket basically that needs to be used up before insurance will pay. So have them check out their out-of-network deductible. It can be that your fee is more than the plan's allowed amount, which is also called the usual and customary or reasonable fee. So the client is going to get a lower reimbursement. So even if a client has, let's say, a 50% reimbursement for out-of-network people, if your fee is $200 and the insurance plan says, oh, that's that's higher than our allowed amount for out-of-network people. We only allow 150, then the client's going to get half of that, which is like 75. So make sure you never promise a client what they're going to get. Could be your diagnosis is out of date. Diagnoses codes are constantly changing, sometimes very little, but be sure your diagnosis is in. You know what? I'm going to put a website that helps you find out whether your diagnosis is up to date, and it's called icd10data.com. And I'm going to put that on the landing page after we hang up today, so you can find out. So that'll also be in our little landing page. Might be that you're missing a diagnosis code, the CPT code, a telehealth modifier, place of service code. Again, it could be that your tax ID is unknown to the health plan, so they may need a W-9. They may want to see your notes before payment, and this is especially true with UBH, UHC, or Optum, especially if you're billing for a 90837. I have to say with that particular health plan, I have started to down code to a 90834 even when I do longer sessions, because they tend to audit more for the 90837. Client isn't covered at the time of service. Maybe they weren't paying their premiums, or they were covered by a different health plan. All right, so let's jump forward to our, again, I just want to remind you of the freebies. Again, the sample Superbill, the check-in coverage to see an out-of-network therapist handout. You can join my mailing list. It's all at theinsurancemeetings.com/spoon. And there's my contact information. I'm going to leave that up for a few seconds while we wrap this up. It's been lovely joining you all today, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have questions about other things in your practice.
Yes, thank you so much, Barbara. This was such insightful content. We really appreciate it as always. Just want to remind everybody that this webinar will be recorded and sent out in our follow-up email going out tomorrow morning. Again, thank you, Barbara, and thank you all for the hard work you do each and every day. We'll see you again very soon.
Thanks, Nick. Bye, everyone.